Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's Xbox Factor podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mr. Boomstick XL. And obviously, if you are a fan of the show and you have been following me both on Twitter and on YouTube, the notification situation with YouTube has been horrible. As a matter of fact, I was receiving numerous messages from people that didn't even know that we were live, that somehow or another it wasn't even showing up in the feed, which is... it hurts small channels like mine. It really does. Apparently, we are live with 3 people watching, so at least 3 people know we're live. So thank you so much for being here. All I'm going to ask is this. If, in fact, you are enjoying the content and you want to support Double Barrel Gaming and you are following me both on Twitter and, of course, YouTube, hit the bell icon because you'll definitely get notified. And, of course... put it out there, tweet it out there for me, because I've been advertising like a lunatic for the last 3 days. But let's get into, of course, why we're all here. That's to talk about Xbox, and we have an amazing panel. So let me head right to my other co-host, someone that has really greased the cogs since joining, someone that needs to be here because his opinion is valued. Welcome to the show, Zemi Games.
Well, thank you so much, Boom. Last Tuesday, I had a blast on that show, man. That was a fantastic show. And this show is going to be just like it, hopefully. I mean, these topics that you lined up are absolutely amazing. I mean, something I actually haven't even talked about for a lot of them. So I'm really excited, man. Super happy to be here.
Well, glad to have you as always. Again, you being a part of the show is big for me, and it's greatly appreciated. Next up, you know him with the new Resident Evil Jill, I guess, avatar. And he's also someone that I love working with simply because he's a gamer. He plays on everything. He's currently hard at work, either on PSO2 or, of course, Animal Crossings, which people are telling me that I might actually have to buy and check that out. I've never actually played one, admittedly enough. But welcome to the show, Tempest Sun.
Thank you, Boom. It's good to be here. I had to miss Monday, so I'm glad I get to play catch-up with being on a show of yours. It's the Xbox Factor. I think I might actually bleed green, so it's probably perfect I'm on this show. So, you got some good topics, too, so let's have some fun.
All right. Well, it's great to have you on here as always. And of course, we did miss you on Monday evening. But you know what? Listen, family first. And obviously, you weren't feeling well. And thankfully, you are feeling better. And last, but certainly not least, all the way from the UK, you know him as a sarcastic Brit. I know him as a friend. He's also someone that really does enjoy the Xbox brand. And he's always tweeting about it. Very active on social media. Please welcome to the show, Jamie Moran.
All right, Boom. Thanks for having us on. Been a ton of gaming topics lately that should be interesting to talk about, and let's just get into it.
Well, listen, it's great to have you on. I'm really happy. I mean, of course, obviously with the world being the way it is, a lot of people are home. So, I get an opportunity to work with some folks that normally can't make the show. So selfishly enough, I'm happy to have you on. So let's get into what I think is going to take up a good 30, 40 minutes. It's going to be salty. But it's a topic that I spent over 2 hours researching to make sure that I got it right. Because you obviously know that if you listen to these shows that I produce, we don't stoke the fire, if you will, when it comes to console war. We do provide facts. We do provide our opinions. And that's something we're going to do right now. Now, obviously, with Sony's PlayStation 5 reveal being dubbed by many as a complete disaster, and the current market leader seemingly in disarray, it seems with all of the big changes that have come in the last 2 years, kind of hurt PlayStation in a big way that a lot of people, especially the gaming media, isn't talking about. Now, obviously, internally, there's something going on at Sony. No one's saying, no one's talking about it. So we're going to talk about it on this show. Even though this is Xbox specific, we're going to kind of bring this back around as to why Microsoft has positioned themselves to line up Sony for the potential knockout blow early in the next generation, which starts in about 6 or 7 months. Now, some people, and I've said this before, I think Sony right now is on the ropes. And I've had people wholeheartedly disagree with me. And that's fine. If you are someone that bleeds blue and it's your console of choice and you don't think what I'm saying is factual, I hear you. I take nothing away, and I've said this numerous times, of what they've done in this generation. What they're going to do in 2020 with, of course, Ghost of Tsushima and, of course, The Last of Us 2. No one's taking anything away from that. But if you watch and listen and you read as much as a lot of us do, especially in the chat as well as on this panel, there is something wrong at Sony. And I am going to break it down, and hopefully it makes sense to you, even if you are a Sony fan. Now, I'm not sure what is going on, but I will say this. We have seen this exact situation happen before during the transition from the PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3. Many of the things that went wrong during E3 2006, during that horrific presentation, is something that we're starting to notice now. Now, it may not be Sony coming out and saying, hey, if you want a PlayStation 5, sell your kid. You know what I'm saying? No one's going to say that. But it does seem like maybe Sony kind of lost a little bit of its footing going into the next generation. They certainly do not seem confident. Now, the reason why I brought up the event of 2006 was Sony did a lot of boo-boos, right? Their presentation for the PlayStation 3 was bad. Their messaging was bad. The go out and get a job because it's $600 was bad. Now, what I'm saying is this. Right now, something is wrong at Sony. And if you don't want to believe that, that's perfectly fine. I'm talking hashtag facts, and we'll break down everything leading up to why I think the dominant Sony is not the same person and why it's absent. Now, here is why I think Sony is not Sony right now. And you may never see the return. You may not ever see the return to glory because of these reasons. Now, this is the list that I was able to pull and confirm of all major executives that were there for the PlayStation 4 launch and now are gone, or at least in positions that are no longer either with Sony. And the one person that's still there is kind of been tucked away in the back that no one's paying attention to. So here's who they lost. You have Kaz Hirai, who was a big rah-rah guy for Sony and PlayStation. Andrew House, someone I really respected, he's gone. Atsushi Morita is gone. Sean Layden, one of my favorite Sony executives, gone. The guy is an invisible man. I think we've heard from him only once on social media, right? Like I don't want to say he's Jimmy Hoffa, but I'm saying that we've not heard from him. And he is one of the guys that I enjoyed watching at E3 presentations for Sony. You have Shuhei Yoshida. Now, he's the person that's left. He's handling indie developers, he was demoted, and you haven't heard from him. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone soon enough, because that kind of demotion, especially in the Asian region, is considered disrespectful. And I think what they did to him was wrong. You also have Gio Corsi. He was a big name with Sony. He's gone. And obviously, the last but certainly not least, Adam Boyes. He was in that video. This is how you share PlayStation 4 games, right? World famous. Now, here's the thing. All the major players in what made Sony and the PlayStation 4 so widely accepted, beloved, and became a household name are not there. Right now, it is left with Jim Ryan, who, of course, is a fantastic businessman, but certainly not a rah-rah guy. Herman Hurst, who was, of course, the head of the Killzone team, is now replaced Shuhei Yoshida and seems not to be a rah-rah guy either. So here, let's get the panel involved. Let's get the chat involved. And I'll start with Zemi. Zemi, look, here's the thing. No one on this panel and no one in this chat is going to suggest in any way, shape, or form that the PlayStation 5 at 9.2 teraflops or 10.3 when it's, on boost mode is going to be a console that isn't going to deliver for its fans. And I'm one of those fans because I cannot wait to get mine. I cannot wait to pre-order it so I can guarantee that come November I'm playing whatever they're going to have out.
Mm-hmm.
But with all of that said, taking nothing away from what they've done, we have to look at, of course, the bumbling and stumbling since towards the end of 2019. Most people will admit, and I think you're one of them, that Microsoft and Phil Spencer completely took the world by storm and shocked everyone with the Game Awards, right? Something I'm going to continue to bring up, right? Right? They shocked everyone, including Sony, by the way, which if you look at that video, and you can see you can see the bewilderment in Mark Cerny. He was taking notes. Like the guy came there for the award show and he was taking notes. Now, no one takes away from how smart the man is, but I think even him, he didn't see this coming. And since then, it has been an onslaught of an amazing Xbox news. Well, when you look at why, and this is my opinion as to the reason for Sony completely being off kilter or out of sorts or disoriented, it's because of this list of incredible rah-rah guys that led the charge for Sony. Now, do you agree with my assumption or even opinion that there could be something to this as to why Sony has not been the same Sony?
I mean, possible. I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, it's, I wish I was a fly on the wall, right? So I could hear all of these meetings and I could tell you exactly why, hopefully, right? But, I mean, you also have to think, of course, they've lost a lot of these people, but maybe a reason why they've lost all these people is because they failed to adapt into this new generation and they were let go or quietly let go or something. I don't know, right? I don't know that much about Sony's like hierarchy and how all that works out. But ultimately they definitely have a problem now with, I mean, just looking at the announcement of the PS5, them announcing all the hardware and stuff like that. I mean, that was just, I mean, it was kind of hard to watch, right? For a lot of people. And then looking at what Xbox is doing it's just two different worlds, right? So they definitely have a problem. They're definitely not. I would. It doesn't really look like they're ready to go into this next console generation. It almost seems like they thought 2021 would have been the year. But for one reason or another, they don't appear to be ready. And like you said, it might have something to do with them losing all of those people. But even with that said, I don't think it's doom and gloom for Sony. I don't think it's too late for them to come back. Obviously, it's probably maybe a little bit too late for them to come back at the very beginning of this generation. But look at how far Xbox has went from 2013 till now, right?
Right.
All Sony needs is more people, more talent to promote the correct people, in their company, and they can come back the same exact way Microsoft has came back, this generation. And I will actually go as far to say that how Xbox was at the very beginning of this generation, I think Sony compare, the company now, Sony now versus Xbox then, I think Sony is still in a better situation than Xbox was in going into this new generation.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, so I mean, they can absolutely come back. They're definitely not at their prime in any way, shape, or form. They definitely have a lot of things that they need to work on fixing with the PS5 and with the advertisement and with the transparency and giving news to the PlayStation fans. And hopefully they do that. But as far as, them, all these people that they've lost, I'm sure that has probably a significant amount to do with it. But I think I don't think that that's just the only thing that is causing PlayStation to be outperformed right now. I think some of it probably is cockiness, a lack to innovate because they were already on top. And we've seen this countless generations, one generation, whoever's on top, the next generation, their competition's on top, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's a lot of different factors that put Sony into their situation, not just losing out on these people, but losing out on these people definitely played a role.
You know, I want you to elaborate on something because I actually was going to bring it up, but you brought it up first, so I want you to get full credit on this. There is something that I have been touting for quite some time, and I've asked the question, people have answered it. There is and has always been a cockiness to Sony. And you know, it for me anyway, looking at it from now, no longer just a fan, but actually, because I don't consider myself media, right? I don't have a media badge. No one takes me serious, right? So I'm just I'm a content creator who really puts a lot of work behind the scenes into, you know, researching the stuff we're going to talk about, because I don't want to sound like an idiot up here. I don't want to do that. I want to be professional. But you mentioned cockiness. And like I said, was saying a few seconds ago, Sony exudes cockiness, and for good reason. They are the market leader. They are currently the market leader for many reasons. But cockiness can occasionally come back and kick you in the teeth. And we saw this same arrogance. That's what I kind of like to allude to, is the arrogance more than the cockiness. We saw the same kind of arrogance go from PS2, which was one of their best and most sold consoles, to the PS3, right? We'll talk about it. The comment. Well, if you want the PlayStation 3, go and get a second job. You know what I'm saying? No one should ever say that. You shouldn't say that to your consumers. And we saw that happen with Microsoft. Don Matrix. You know what? If you don't want to be online, I got a console for you. It's the Xbox 360. Don't do that. Don't do that in business. But could this arrogance, or like you said, cockiness, be the reason why, not so much that they don't have the mind share anymore? Could this be the reason why they seem to be so underpowered in their box?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Well, I mean, you know, you have to look at it at Sony's perspective. I mean, they've led this generation pretty much the entire time. And of course, you know, these last 2 years, Xbox has had the more powerful console. But even still, I mean, this generation is for sure going to be given to Sony without a shadow of a doubt. Right. And with that being said, you know, it's almost like they're still living in 2013. They're still living in the early part of this console generation, and they probably kind of thought that Xbox wasn't going to really go as hard as they're going now. I think that they, you know, misinterpreted Xbox's drive and their hunger to be back on top, and because of their cockiness, you know, they've led to this. I mean, it's one thing to be confident. I mean, there's a thin line between confidence and being cocky and arrogant. And I think that they kind of crossed that line a little bit too far. And that's why they're in this situation. They've completely underestimated Xbox, how much money they were going to spend on developing this console and the tech that they were going to put in it. And also Microsoft's marketing. I mean, we've talked about it before. You know, all of this generation, their marketing has been, you know, lackluster.
Yes.
And I think Sony also expected that it would be, you know, the same old Xbox. I just don't think that they really thought that Phil Spencer could come in 2017 and make such a big impact towards the brand and just turn the ship around as much as he did. And I think that that's why they're in this situation, because they just completely underestimated Xbox.
Well, that's a great point. I'm glad you alluded on that, or alluded to that fact, I should say. You know, 10%, I want to get you on in here. Look, you are a superhero fan like myself, so I'm going to drop on a superhero analogy. Okay, here now I'll put it in simple terms for some people that may or may not be like big hero fans. The Justice League is not the JLA without the Trinity, known as Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And based on the unbelievable silence from Sony since December 12th on the Game Awards, it appears that the Xbox Emerald Green is indeed the kryptonite that is now causing the dysfunction at Sony. What are your thoughts on the silence? What are your thoughts on the leadership and lack of it? And do you think that the people that have left are one of the reasons why they can't seem to get a foothold within market share?
I think what you're seeing is history repeating itself. Sony's looking awfully familiar, awfully familiar to how Xbox looked. I mean, they're coming from this generation. They're the market leaders. I don't know why you try to fix something that's not broken, but clearly their entire leadership is different now. It's just like a different company. I don't see, I mean, with all of the changes, like fundamental changes of how you can run a company who's in gaming, like Phil and the team have been doing with Xbox. I mean, they're doing some kooky things throughout this generation. A lot of people, they couldn't get behind it. They're like, I don't know what the heck you're doing day in, day, play anywhere. Game Pass, I mean, Game Pass was enough. At one point, Game Pass was let's remember, folks, it never was, right? You know, that's what a lot of people were calling it. And, well, it's here to stay now. And not only that, they made the change so all first-party games, day and date, go on there. So they're doing some wild things. So, and Phil Spencer has like the right seat of the head of Microsoft, like one of the most, you know, richest companies on the planet right now. So if they're your competitor, I don't see any scenario where they wouldn't want to bring it. They wouldn't give Phil all this power. They wouldn't let him purchase how many studios and make new studios if they weren't serious. When they started building this PS5, I just want everybody to remember they could have came out with a box themselves that was 12 teraflops, had the CPU, the GPU it has. They could have done all that stuff, and they didn't. They wanted to do their own thing, love it or hate it. It looks like they decided to put all their chips in one basket. They wanted all their eggs in one basket. They wanted the fast SSD. So I know it's not quite exactly the question, you know, you were asking, but I'm kind of scratching.
No, it's okay. I mean, listen, you know, you have to speak in your own words, and obviously what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I just, like you, I don't understand it. And, you know, this presentation that they had was a colossal mistake, mistake. And you could say it's just one mistake, but listen, this is your first impression. You only get one chance to make a good first impression, and this was it. You had Mark Cerny, so we're going to take some nice fancy looks at your earlobes. We're going to
lend me your ears.
Lend me your ears. He went on for like 20 minutes on that crap, and at the end of the day, Dolby called that man out.
They sure did. I don't have it in here, but why don't you just kind of talk about that for a second?
Well, pretty much the biggest thing was Mark Cerny was trying to say that you were limited to 32. I don't know if they call it actions or what it is, but like 32 things happening. And he was saying Atmos is limited. And he came out and said that's not the case. He said like developers or whatever wanted it limited to 32 because any more than that, and it just sounds like garbage. You know, they want to, I guess, have more control, if you will. So that was like one of the points. He went on in a few other details as well, but it's pretty bad when the standard of audio, and they're the standard at audio. I can go down and spend almost $20 on the fanciest 4K. I have this theater called GDX, right? I spend like close to $20 to sit in the good seats. And what do they have? They have Dolby Atmos. It's like the loudest, most amazing sounding thing. It like makes you moisten your loincloth when you listen to it. You're like, oh God, it's awesome.
I love it. That's great.
That's Dolby Atmos, and Microsoft has it and Sony doesn't. I'm sorry, but that all that tells me is they didn't want to pay for it. They didn't want to pay for it.
That's exactly correct. Yep.
That's all it boils down to. The only other company that I would think wouldn't want to pay for it is like Nintendo. I expect this from Nintendo. I don't expect this from Sony, but they just didn't want to pay for that license. So I don't know, man. They're the standard for a reason. I mean, I don't know. It's ridiculous to me. When I saw that they weren't going to use Dolby Atmos, that hurt me. That hurt my interest in it. I thought that was bullcrap. Right now, I've already bought the license to Dolby Atmos through Xbox. So, you know, any headphone I use, guess what? I'm getting 3D audio. I didn't need to send explicit pictures of my earlobes to them to Xbox to make that work for me. You know. So I don't know. This whole it's a mess. And at the end of the day, if you know. When these consoles launch and when one is and will be vastly superior, at least when it comes to like third-party games, people think they're going to somehow be the same. They are not going to
not even close.
The same.
They're not even going to be close.
Not even close. And if you have a developer who gives a crap, like the new, I don't know, I'm a bold claim here, but the new Assassin's Creed Ragnarok, if that's indeed what it's called, That's going to be 4K 60 on the new box with all kinds of bells and whistles,
Ray
some
tracing, you
ray
name
tracing,
it. Yeah.
maybe not full blown ray tracing, but some form of ray tracing. I mean, you name it, they're going to have those features. You're probably going to have a box on the other hand that might not even be native 4K, and they might have to make some adjustments to get to that 60 frames per second. I know people aren't going to want to hear that because it's the newest and the greatest, but a 9.2 teraflop box that sometimes can peak at 10.28, so 10.3, that doesn't sound, without VRS and all that stuff, that doesn't sound like a 4K 60 box on every game. It just doesn't sound.
There's a lot of strange things about what's going on with Sony. First of all, the fact that VRS wasn't mentioned, the fact that any type of quick resume feature was mentioned. There were the fact that instead of it having 1 terabyte, it has the system is launching with 826 gigs and 250, 230 to 250 of that is going to be on the OS. So you're going to have about 5 and change available. No one's talking about that.
That's the other thing too. They said that the hard drives you buy, they are 100% going to be proprietary built drives. They will be built for Sony's console, but they said you can't have a heatsink on it, I believe. So you're going to have to buy on all these SSDs. I believe they come with a heatsink on it. So you're going to have to get a custom made drive that was going to fit in that thing. And it's going to have to meet those specs too. So I don't know. Some people are thinking it as a win. I don't necessarily.
I don't think so at all. Nope.
I mean, and get this. This isn't any lie here, but when the 360 first came out, you remember it had that hard drive on the top. You hit the button and you pop that thing off, right?
Yeah.
That thing could hold all of your save games, and back then you still used discs, right? So I could take a disc over to my friend's house that also had a 360, and I could bring all my save games with it. I would not have to restart any games, no nothing. Well, in this scenario, you could store up to, I don't know how many games in that little 1 terabyte card, pull it out like it's a memory card, take it somewhere else or just somewhere in your house, pop that puppy in, no installation, no anything required.
It just reads it right off the card. Yeah.
Yeah. And with everything being in the cloud, as far as your save games, your profiles, all of what you own, all that stuff, no matter what Xbox you take it to, you could take it, I don't know, to anybody's place as long as it, uses that slot, and you're good to go. I mean, to me, that sounds exciting. I really don't see a scenario where you're going to be taking out a disc, at least with the same ease, out of the bay of the PS5. So I don't know. That's another one up, I believe. The one thing that's supposed to be in PS5's advantage, yeah, it is in speed, but in like utility and actual use, I almost feel that Xbox even has an advantage there, to be honest with you. So.
Well, it's funny because Remedy, who everyone thought was in Sony's back pocket, came out, I believe it was yesterday, because I know they talked about it. It might have been Monday or Tuesday, because I know RDX talked about it. Colt and those guys and Dealer, about how the Remedy actually said they don't think that the SSD is going to do much for Sony's machine. They said that. I'm not making it up. I mean, if you want, I could find the article and drop it into the chat once someone else starts to talk. But let me catch up with some of these amazing super chats. First of all, very good friend of the show, Sin Vendetta, drops a very outstandingly generous $10 super chat and says, I believe that the power of the box has more to do with Sony wanting to stay close to the magic $400 or $399 price more than anything else. Sony wants to stay far away from that $599 as possible. And you know what, Sin? You're onto something. But here's the thing. As much as I want to believe, and I'm a buyer, so 400 is better than 500. I'm not. If you told me, well, boom, what do you want to pay for your PS5? I will tell you $400. The reason why I don't think that's a possibility is because if the Bloomberg report was by anybody else, if it would have been by Gaming Bolt or IGN or even like Kotaku, I would question the validity of it. I'd be like, well, I don't know about that. But Bloomberg is the standard when it comes to pricing and industry talk. And they have the PlayStation 5 as being built for $450. And in that $450 does not include the packaging, the shipping, and the advertising. And right now, as great as Sony is with their first parties, they do not have an avenue in the back end to make up the monies like Microsoft does. And what do I mean by that? Sure, they can make some monies up through the PSN service, right? But they can't get it. They cannot make up that back end money through PS Now. PS Now, I don't even think it has 1.5 million people. It might. Let's get crazy here and say that I have 2 million subs per year, per month. It's not enough if you compare it to what Microsoft is doing now. We don't know the exact numbers, but we did see something come out at the end of last year with somewhere like 10 million people were suggesting. I mean, that's 5 times the amount. So if Microsoft, which their box is supposedly being made for $470, I think it's $473, they could eat the little cost of the shipping, packaging, and advertising through, of course, the back-end service of Xbox Live, and of course Game Pass. They can eat that. So if each box after shipping and packaging and advertising came to, let's say, $523, let's just say, or let's say $530, for this rounded off. Microsoft, because Phil Spencer has already stated that they're not going to be outpaced or by the PlayStation 5's power or by the price, they would eat that $30. Whereas Sony, I don't know if they would be willing to do that. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, even if they did have the money, I mean, are we really going to even say that they would want to even spend it? Because there's a lot of things that Sony has kind of cheaped out on here recently.
Well, I mean, you can. That's a great point, Zemi, because if you bring up what they've done with the console, they kind of cheaped out a little bit. Like you know what? Real quick, let me catch up on the other super chat because it's a good friend of the show. Our good Reverend Smitty Smith says this: Cerny, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Dolby Atmos, boy, if you don't sit down. The Book of X. I love it. This is great. This is all fun and games. Jamie Moran, I want to get you in here. I got to get you in here because you, my friend, are bleeding green when cut. And look, I'm going to say this. I know that this first half, because this is only the first half of this amazing topic that I wrote. I actually think, and maybe I'm, tooting my own horn here, one of the better ones that I wrote so far for 2020. I know I'm going to get a ton of hate for these comments. I get it. And I accept it all. But I don't think I said anything today that wasn't factual. And I, along with a ton of other content creators, see a huge difference in Sony. And their swagger, in my opinion, is all but gone. And public and gaming journalistic mindshare has been all Xbox and Phil Spencer. Now, you obviously sat back, you listened to us talk for the last 33 minutes, which is ridiculous. And we're finally bringing you into the mix, so I want you to kind of go crazy and let loose. As a fan of gaming, not just a fan of Xbox, do you think, in your opinion, and like I said, paint this picture like Bob Ross any way you want, could the removal of all of these rah-rah guys that got the fan base so excited be one of the reasons why they just seem to be in a disarray? But more importantly, why the very strange choices in regards to hardware?
Well, let's talk about this. So, Sony, I personally think next generation, both Microsoft and Sony are going to be completely fine. Now, with that being said, Sony isn't the same Sony as they used to be. And I think it all starts back with the Xbox 360. Actually, let's go even further back. The original Xbox. Microsoft came out the gate. They were new in the console scene, didn't know what they were doing that much. They tried to advertise heavily in Japan, and it didn't work out well. Then the Xbox 360 came along, and they dominated. They were the talking point. You had the US president talking about buying his daughter's Xbox games. It was literally a phenomenon. Like, the Xbox 360 is the UK's best-selling console, I believe, ever. And it's a talking point. It was like gaming was Xbox. That's all people said. Gaming was Xbox. And then this generation came along, and let's face it, that OG Xbox One was over-engineered to stay cool, and it works. But the thing is, we all know what the messaging was like at launch, and it didn't work out well for Microsoft. But what I don't think Sony realizes is that they do not like a confident Microsoft. In the Xbox 360 days, Microsoft were really confident. They were swinging it all over the place, and they didn't even care. With 2015 rolled around, they came out and announced backwards compatibility. And as soon as people reacted, people loved it. People loved the fact that they could play the old games again. And what did Sony do? They didn't say they were going to try and work on it. They didn't say that they were going to try and give the fans something similar. They said gamers don't want to play old games.
Yep, that's correct.
So 2017 rolls around. Sony already have their PlayStation 4 Pro out, and Microsoft are about to release the Xbox One X, this 4K capable console, and there's a lot of 4K games. So as soon as the console comes out, Mark Cerny comes out and says, well, you need 8 teraflops for 4K games. Notice a pattern. No matter what Microsoft does for the gamers or in general, Sony comes out and just says something that tries to diffuse the situation. So, for instance, recently, Microsoft come out and say 12 T-flops. The new console is going to be 12 teraflops and all this stuff. And what does Sony do? When they talk about their console, their GDC style talk, they barely mention teraflops. They said, actually, teraflops isn't really a measurement of power. And then they start talking about SSD and 3D audio. And 3D audio, we had on the Xbox One at launch. We have Dolby Atmos. And the thing is, did they not want to shell out the money to get Dolby Atmos? Probably not. So they're coming out with their own proprietary thing so they don't have to spend money. It makes sense. Sony's done that in the past. I don't think Sony was prepared for Microsoft to be confident again, because let's face it, the first few years of this generation, Microsoft didn't really make many moves. They had a better launch lineup, but people talked about power. And as soon as games start coming out, people start saying, oh, well, look at all these third-party games. And then in 2016, 17 rolled around, there was less Microsoft games coming out. And then people all of a sudden switched from, because I don't know if anyone else remembers, there used to be episodes of Kind of Funny Games where they used to be saying, Sony's not releasing any games. They didn't release anything, like up until I think it was Horizon Zero Dawn. Like Sony were barely releasing first party games, and it was fine back then.
Yeah,
and this whole Xbox has no games thing. I zone out that right now because it's it's so annoying and it's basic. It's like the most useless thing people can come up with when they don't have a talking point. And like with Sony right now, what are they doing with their next generation console? They aren't showing their fan base the console. They aren't showing them some games. Do you know what we have seen games from? Microsoft. We've seen Everwild, Hellblade 2. We've seen Halo Infinite. And the thing is, Microsoft, really confident. They came out at the Game Awards and showed us the console. Nobody was expecting that. No. Normally we get some cringe reveals in some games. That's it. And what did we get? A console reveal. And then Microsoft since then have been coming out every few weeks, just giving us little bits of information out of nowhere, unexpected. And Sony isn't prepared for this. And yes, people will obviously reply in the chat saying, but they have the exclusive. Obviously, they have exclusive. But the talking point is the console. And the thing is, Microsoft are clearly confident. They coming out with a next generation console that's literally the shape of, well, it's just a brick, and they built it that way to have airflow. You can guarantee that the PlayStation it might resemble a PlayStation 4 Pro. Sony seem more, how should I put it? They seem more concerned about how a console would look rather than how it perform. Because I've heard the PlayStation 4 Slim, and that sounds like a helicarrier going off.
Yeah, it's loud. I mean, listen, to your point, we have heard from several developers, unnamed developers, that have reached out to different parts of the media that says that the dev kits for the PlayStation 5 are not only loud, but they are running hot. could be the reason why. We haven't seen it yet. Maybe there isn't a final design. Design. Maybe Sony is having issues with the heatsink. I don't know, because they haven't told us shit.
Exactly. I mean, look at the Xbox One X. It has a giant copper heatsink inside.
Yes.
And they
see the size of the fan. Just look on the screen. That fan, you can launch it and lift yourself off the ground.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Microsoft clearly want their consoles to be cool, run well for a long time. And think about Sony came out the other day and talk about specs. Kind of, they barely mention specs. They barely mention ray tracing, and then they say 10.2 T-flops, but that's variable. And it's like, after years of people talking about power, after you having like Sony executives talking about the resolution of Xbox One games at launch, it just goes to show that Sony is not ready for a confident Microsoft. Now that doesn't mean that Sony is not going to come out with good games. Of course they're going to come out with good games, but a confident Microsoft is better for everyone. But a confident Microsoft is something Sony does not like. Because in the past, like the Xbox 360 days, it goes to show that people aren't just willing to just go, oh, I'm just going to PlayStation and not Xbox. Because, look, I know a lot of people that went from PlayStation 2 to Xbox 360 and stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
yes.
While I do think everyone's going to be fine in the end, I just think that Sony, they clearly looking really kind of arrogant at some point. I should say sometimes, and I don't think they really came prepared for this generation, because all in all, is like I said, everyone's going to be fine next generation, but I literally don't think Sony is prepared for next generation.
Yeah. That's a great point. Real quick, I know that somebody wants to jump in. Let me just catch up on some of the super chats before I miss them. First of all, Robert Jones, good friend of the show, very generous friend of the show, drops a $5 super chat and says this: "Go, go, go, the Book of X." And of course, Smitty Smith, Reverend Smitty Smith, has become a channel member. Hey, Smitty, thank you for that, dude. I super appreciate it. And of course, Robert Jones drops an outstanding and extremely additional generous $12 super chat and says this: "I just want to say, don't think Sony even has hardware at the moment and still trying to figure out the silicon. Things not looking good." You know what, dude? I got news for you. There's a small piece of me, Robert, that thinks, and I know this is a stretch. Remember, this is my opinion. Okay, I don't want to get anybody get hate mail for Boom. Could you imagine if, with what's going on in the world and what's going on at Sony with them being in disarray, could you imagine if by some chance they missed a launch in November and they have to launch in December, January, February? It'd be disastrous. Disastrous for the company if Microsoft not only launched the X but did a 2 SKU attack like I'm predicting. And Restored Hades drops an outstanding and very generous $5 super chat, and he says this: "Hello everyone, just want to ask the panel if you all think that the PS5 is coming this year. In my opinion, it's not looking good so far." Oh, that's weird. It's like I had telekinesis there. I talked about it prior to answering the question. I didn't even read this thing. Hey, listen, Restored Hades, I hope I answered your question, because I actually think, and again, this is just a shot in the dark opinion, with everything going on think about this for a second. With Microsoft being as bold and different and aggressive as they've been, right? It seems as if the best that Sony could have done was that Mark Cerny presentation. And that was a womp womp, right? We all agree that was one of those, those moments that you kind of want to just tuck into the back. And from there, I mean, again, not saying that no one's saying they're not going to have great first party games. No one is saying that they're going to not have a strong PS5. It is what it is. It's going to be a great console. But we have to say, why haven't they shown? Why haven't they talked about VRS? Why haven't they talked about fast resume? Why haven't they talked about the reasoning for 826 in the memory? It's weird. It's very strange, and there are a lot of questions and very little answers. Before I kind of hit part 2 of this topic, somebody wanted to jump in for a second.
Yeah, it might be related. It was me. It might be related to part two. I just wanted to say, not even about Sony, but just Xbox. This is the first time Xbox has almost solely put all their chips in first party studios. They've never done this. They've always had a few studios, maybe, but in general, they relied on second party and third party deals.
Yes, one of the biggest mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. So this is also the newest we've seen. It's a different Microsoft or different Xbox this time as well. I just think it's exciting because we haven't seen this from them yet. Like, what does it look like when such a rich company like Microsoft says, "Hey, we want to win at gaming"? Like, what do we get from that? So I just think it's exciting.
Yeah, jump in. Come on.
Well, I was actually thinking about that last super chat. So my question is, do you think it would be worse for Sony to, do you really think it would be that bad of a thing for them to push back their console until 2021? Because that would give them time, and it really looks like they need time right now.
It would be disastrous.
You think so? You don't think that added time would help them have a stronger release?
I don't think it would help anything. They're not gonna miraculously make the box stronger. That would just take that much more R&D, more money, more planning. I mean, if that would delay it even further, I think, anyway. I don't see how it could help them. And like I said before, on the show here, people are kind of fickle. They're going to see the next gen box, and whichever one comes out first, a lot of people, not all of them, but a lot of people are going to be like, that's what I'm buying because I'm impatient. I want something next gen, so.
You know what? Zemi, like I said, I'll stick to my guns with this. I'll say that if they did in fact release late, I think it would be disastrous for the company. Do I think they're going to be a delayed? No. Do I think that we have some doubt as to the potential of a delay? Yes. So I don't know, but real quick, before I move on to the next topic, Eagles fan 76 drops a $2 super chat and says this: money or time to donate to your first responders PPE. Yeah, thanks for that, dude. Yeah, the first responders. We and I say we because even though I don't do it anymore, I did it for 21 plus years. No one ever thinks about us. It's very rare, very rare. So that's very kind of you to say. I appreciate it. But listen, let's get back to gaming. Now that we've gotten the why Sony is different out of the way, let's talk about what Phil Spencer needs to do for the TKO at the start of the next generation. And I have already alluded to, the Game Awards did more than just shock the gamers around the world. It was a shot across the bow, in my opinion. And I believe it staggered Sony and the PlayStation 5. Another gut punch came when Phil Spencer changed his Twitter icon to the Xbox Series X chip, followed by the confirmation that the Xbox Series X was in fact 12.1 teraflops. The next on the Matt 8 count came when Digital Foundry and Austin Evans' full reveal and breakdown of the specs, the design, visual presentation of quick resume and fast load for everyone to see. The pure confidence that Microsoft has shown has been nothing short of incredible. And the change in the marketing and messaging, thanks to, of course, Cindy Walker, who originally suggested they go bold, and of course the rehiring of Jarrett West, are two main reasons why this is not your parents' Xbox. So let's get into the question for the panel and for the chat. The knockout blow is coming. There's just no doubt about it. And we know it's coming because Microsoft has, from what I've heard from an inside source who actually knows Phil Spencer, and King, who was on Friday's Breakfast with Boom, knows exactly what I'm talking about because we were told it at the same time. They apparently have weeks of drops ready to go at a click of a mouse. And we've seen that so far. So do I think the knockout blow is coming? Yeah, I do. I think it's going to come in the form of the official reveal of the Xbox Series S. And I think that we're going to get a bunch of presentations regarding graphics. I think we're going to get some stealth drops of more information on what games could be coming for launch. And I think in June, we're going to get a presentation that's going to melt the internet where you're going to get nothing but games. They're all going to be AAA and quadruple A bangers. You're going to get a bunch of surprises. You're going to get a price on both consoles, and you're going to get to close it out an official release date. And I don't know from now to then what Sony is going to do, but they need to do something fast. Now, here's my question. With my assumption that the knockout blow is coming panel, do you think that there's anything Sony can do to stop it? But more importantly, what move does Microsoft and Phil Spencer need to do next to keep the foot on the throat of Sony? And I'll start with, of course, Zemi Games.
I mean, keep the foot on the throat of something. That's a little aggressive.
It is aggressive. It is aggressive, and it might be ballsy of me to say that live on the air.
Yeah,
but you know what? I've been coy long enough. It's time to rip off the good guy stuff, and maybe dabble in the bad guy or the bad boy kind of a realm. So take it away.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Well, I mean, I guess to start off, like the first question is, what can Sony do? Spend more money. I mean, money will hopefully solve all of their problems. Maybe. I mean, but they couldn't outspend Microsoft, of course. I mean, if they had, because that's the problem with Sony. Like, we don't know anything that they're doing, and so if you have nothing to show, then at this point you're kind of out of luck, right? But if you have something to show, if you have new IPs that are going to be released for PlayStation 5, maybe give a little sneak peek, show those types of things. I mean, that's what Sony could kind of do to help combat, I guess Microsoft's aggression, right? But as far as Xbox goes, like, I would love, I love what they're doing right now, right? And I think we're going to start getting into games, and I think that that's exactly where Xbox needs to go. We know about the Series X, we know about the hardware specs, we know what it's going to look like, but I think that they should start showing off their games, talking about their games, giving little sneak peeks, right? I want to see Halo. I want to see Fable 4 announced. And if Welsh were here, he would say it best, but he would definitely want to know what the hell is happening at the initiative, right? What are they working on?
Yeah.
So Xbox, I've said this before, I think we all kind of have, that they have so much ammunition at their disposal. These 15 studios are providing so much for the company. Now, it may be games that you don't want to play, but it's still games, and it's still something that somebody's going to be interested in. And so, I definitely want to see a ton of games, be announced here in these next couple of weeks. And whenever that's done, whenever they're done talking about games for a little bit, whenever they've, given out all of what would have been their E3 announcements, I think that they need to hit us with the banger, the Xbox Series S, the Lockhart, I mean, I think it's, I think it's pretty impossible to say that it doesn't exist. It just makes too much sense. It all these rumors from all these different creators and media sites. I mean, it has to exist. Hit us with that once you talk about all the games, that final big bang. And, if there was going to be a knockout punch, I would say that would be the moment to show off the Series S. But ultimately, I think what's really important for Xbox is to not stop. Don't get confident. Don't get, relaxed. Keep coming out with news. Keep hitting us with all of these stories. Keep pounding at IGN's door to have them talk about all of your games and all the, amazing stuff that Xbox is currently coming out with. And I think that that's really the key. So pretty much what Xbox has already been doing, they just need to keep continuing. They need to stay as transparent as they've been with all of us, this far. And yeah, I mean, I think that will pretty much do it. Obviously, they need to, keep up with their marketing. I think that they should probably increase their marketing with more, video ads and website advertisements and just advertisements everywhere. I think that they should really, really ramp up their marketing as well, even more that they have done, now.
I agree. I don't think anything you said is a far fetch. I think that we need to see games. I think that, there is going to be a lot of backpedaling and erasing of tweets from certain members of this community that I have either blocked or muted because they are toxic trolls on both sides of the avenue. But you know what, Tempest Son, let me get you in here because we're going to bring up games. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive based on what Klobrille had to say on Twitter, which he just posted. And I'm a big fan of his. I know he doesn't like to consider himself an insider, but I know that he knows what he's talking about. He does have the inside sources. But Zemi brings up games, right? Mm-hmm. And games, depending on who you ask, some people will suggest that it's been Microsoft's Achilles heel. Mm-hmm. And their first party output hasn't been as stout as some people would like. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I did not enjoy just about every first party game that they've released. Some people want those Sony-esque AAA bangers, as the kids say, right? And I think that the big reveal, with what Zemi was saying regarding the Xbox Series S, that's going to be a big reveal. But I have to agree with him that I think once the games montage is out there, once we've seen these games running on the Series X, the narrative that has been built against Xbox regarding, you can have the power, you Xbox, but you got no games, is going to be completely wiped away. And I don't know what these guys are going to do with themselves because they're not going to have a narrative anymore. For you personally, with everything that we know that's coming, whatever we know that's not coming, and from what they've been doing so far, how more aggressive does Phil Spencer need to continue to be, and what do you think you want to see?
I think whenever they do their E3 Direct, whatever it is they're doing to take the place of E3, I don't want the one takeaway to be Phil Spencer saying, I'm more proud of what we didn't show than what we did. Right. What he said last year. Right. And, I take him by his word. I believe he has stuff coming. We know that there is stuff coming. I just want them to show a lot of it. They don't have to show all of it, but you got to remember, it's not just their first party. They're going to have marketing deals for future games to come through third party too. And if they do their job correctly, the studios, they will also look better as well on this, Xbox system. So I just, for me personally, even more so than just the hardware, their first party lineup, because of Game Pass, knowing I'll be able to try all of them without having to spend any extra money than my subscription, I'll be able to try all of them really. But I don't think they get enough credit. People say they have no games, and it's about the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They have games, and they have a ton of games coming. I mean, I remember like maybe a year and a half ago, I was watching a video, it's like a fail video or something like that, where people falling down doing stupid things, hurting themselves. And in the comments, I was reading funny comments. All of a sudden, I came to comments, and somebody just randomly said, Xbox has no games. I'm like, nothing related to gaming at all.
I love it.
I'm
the
like,
stupidity of it all.
Like, what the heck? Does it mean that much to you? I'm like, God, it just blows my mind. For me, it's exciting, rare, such a storied developer. Yeah, their last game wasn't for everybody, but those guys there make diverse games. Everwild looks gorgeous. Yeah. Halo Infinite is going to do some new things because they know they have to. That's like probably the biggest budget game of all time if you factor in the cost of the new engine. Turn 10, Forza Horizon, whatever Playground's doing, I have complete faith in them. I can't, if it's Fable, which it probably is, I can't wait for that. There's the third project that they just showed concept art of, and just the concept art alone got me excited. I was like, wow, that looks awesome. The Initiative, just look at the talent. I mean, I don't even know if it's legal for how much talent they've poached from Sony's own studios that are so acclaimed. They just have taken so much talent from them and made it their own in that studio. So whatever they do, but like for me, when I say diverse games, my most look forward to game out of them all is Age of Empires 4. Just to be honest with you, that's the one I'm looking forward to the most. And I love the fact that they made a studio based off of their RTSs, off of their age, World's Edge. I mean, they're going to be making Age of Empires games. I mean, that is fantastic for me. But I could not say the same currently about Sony. I mean, they make phenomenal games, but like every single one of their games outside of Gran Turismo has the exact same camera angle You know, it's literally the same thing in a way. It's the same kind of game over and over, and that's fantastic. People love it. That's great. But I can't stress enough how exciting it is to have people like Obsidian, In Exile. I mean, both of those studios alone can make fantastic RPGs and different kinds of RPGs. Double Fine makes Nintendo-esque quirky games. I mean, the list goes on. Hellblade, one of my favorite PS3 exclusives, was Heavenly Sword. It was like a launch game for the PS3. You remember how awesome that game was?
Yeah, it was great. It was fantastic.
Fantastic. I mean, so they're capable of doing so many cool things. I just don't think they get enough credit for what they actually have now and the diversity. That's my big thing, is the diversity of the games. I mean, they're so, I mean, like, I'll use my wife as an example here, and she'd tell you she absolutely adores State of Decay 2. But guess what? She hates zombies. So you think, like, how does that work? Well, it's all the micromanaging of your people and the base building, the fact that every time you send one of your people that you like out there, they might not come home, you know, all that stuff, even though it's like a AA game. So, like, for her, now she's going to be excited for the new one with a AAA coat of paint on it, you know? They can make it bigger, better, unlimited budget. So for somebody who doesn't even like zombies, she loves State of Decay. So now she'll be excited for the new one. I mean, I hate to go on and on, but even just a pre-show, I was hearing Zemi, not to speak for him, but Zemi doesn't care for the new
Bleeding
one,
Edge.
Bleeding Edge.
Yeah, and he was listing reasons why. And that's, you know, that's great. It's not for him, you know, but there is also people that are going to enjoy it. And that's just a passion project by a few people at Ninja Theory.
15. It was a total. It started out with 7, and they boasted it up to a whole 15 people.
15 people. So there are going to be some people. There's going to be enough, and the game's going to get bigger and bigger. That game's not going to die. It's going to live on Game Pass. It's going to get more popular as time goes on, and there is going to be a crowd, or, you know, a lot of people that really enjoy that game. And that was just a passion project. So the whole no games narrative is dead. It's dead. One last example I got for you. My dad, I've seen my dad play 2 games my entire life, Pac-Man and Driver for the PS1, because it was like a getaway game. It was one of the first games where you could really drift really well. It was awesome. You know, it was like old 70s style cars and stuff. He loved Driver. He played Driver with me when I was a kid. I showed him videos of Flight Simulator, and he said, that's a game I will actually play. He said, I could picture myself flying over the mountains in that game for hours upon hours. Wow. That's what he told me. And so that'll be the 3rd game I've ever seen my father play. And you better believe I'm going to either take my Xbox or get him his own, or whatever it takes. I'm going to get Flight Simulator in his house so he can play that game, because that
game looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
Me and Zemi talked about it a couple of shows ago, and it just gets better every time we see it. It really does.
Excited for it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about, diversity. My dad does not play games, but he looked at that and he said, I will play that. So, you know, games for all people, I tell you what.
No, that's actually a great point. Jamie, I want to bring you in here on this particular topic. But real quick, let me catch up on a few super chats. First of all, the generosity continues to blow me away. I am very humbled by the fact that people take $1 out of their pocket, sometimes, as much as, 100 to drop super chats. And I really want to thank you so much for the Eagles fan. 76 drops a $2 super chat and says this: layeth the SmackDown games and more games inbound. Indeed. Gamer by choice. Welcome, my friend. He says this. He drops a $5 super chat and says, PS5 seems to be built to run first party very well, but XSX seems to be designed to make Xbox and third-party games be better with little input from devs. Yes, that's a great point. And our good friend of the show, who's usually here first, Masshole 1977, drops a $2 super chat and says, next-gen Microsoft's to lose. That's a great point. And he says the EXT card is money is he has questions about how much it's going to cost. I think the memory card's going to be $80, $79.99. Remember, lock that in. Boom said it first. But Jamie, I want to get your opinion on this, because obviously we heard what everyone had to say, both in the chat and you guys, regarding what Sony has done wrong. But we know that what Microsoft has done right has been literally night and day. Like, it is so a noticeable difference that you can only scratch your head as to what happened. You know what I'm saying? So what I like to equate it to is this. Very simple. Again, layman terms, silliness. Remember back in the days, and I'm an old bastard, so maybe some people won't remember this, but in the back of the comic books, right, there used to be an advertisement for a kid that was getting picked on was getting bullied in school, right? And the school lets out for the summer, and that kid, instead of going and hanging out with his friends and riding his bike and flying his kites, he goes to the gym, right? And he gets all pumped up, and now he's this massive dude, right? From this little skinny nothing. He comes back in September, and he beats the balls off the bully because he's this big, massive, hulking thing. This is what I equate the Sony versus Microsoft, now Microsoft being the bully. Now, is bullying something that I can get behind? No. In real life, bullying sucks, and if you're a bully, you're an asshole. I'm telling you that right now, coming from Boom. And I will, and I don't like that kind of shenanigans, whether it be virtually through text or in real life. But for the shenanigans of this particular topic, now it seems as if Microsoft has become the bully in the industry known as gaming. And I like it. I like that they're not being meek or coy. I think they're going for the jugular, and I want them to cut the head clean off, in my opinion. What do you think Phil Spencer and Microsoft need to do to keep this fire burning and continue this onslaught?
Well, they have to continue the surprises. Like the revealing of the Xbox Series X, it's the same thing. They just have to continue to surprise us. When it comes to Microsoft's first-party games, I don't really see it an issue when they release a game or talk about a game that isn't for me, because every game isn't for everyone, so I don't expect everything to be for me. So, for instance, State of Decay 2 has a huge fan base, and I don't like micromanagement. So it kind of swayed me off from the game. And it's fine. It doesn't bother me because, plenty of people enjoy it. And it's, it doesn't bother anyone that I don't enjoy it because of whatever. But the thing is, people keep saying Microsoft has no games and stuff, right? But the thing is, they have a diverse catalog of games. They have RTS games, they have races, they have RPGs, first-person shooters, third-person shooters, tactical games, a flight sim coming out, first time ever to console. And people are just saying Xbox has no games just because they don't have a vast catalog of third-person over-the-shoulder action adventure games. Like that's just silly to me. But when it comes to like Microsoft Surprise and stuff, like they don't hire people from God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, Assassin's Creed, and all this stuff just for nothing. Because I remember, and this goes back to the whole fake concern thing, when the initiative was announced and they were on hiring people, and then it came out that they had maybe 30 developers. Now, as a human being with logic, we know that companies grow over time if they start from scratch, or developers, and people were panicking and concern trolling that, oh my God, they only have 30 developers. They're going to be making something like Tetris, right? That was a thing in my feed. People were trying to make it seem like the initiative was going to be this team filled with these elite developers making tiddlywinks,
I love it.
And the thing is, I just thought it was nonsense at the time. I never spoke much about it. On and off topic, before I continue, I want to read out a tweet because so no matter what I talk about on Twitter, I could be talking about donuts, I could be talking about The Simpsons, Pokemon, anything. People will make it about PlayStation. Okay. Right. So last night I tweeted this. Ever see a download size that makes you think, ouch? And I just got a reply.
That. Yeah, I favored that tweet. Yeah.
I just got a reply saying, a thing of the past with hashtag PS5.
Oh my God.
Like,
not even confirmed that it can do that.
I just needed to read that out there because it's so cringeworthy. But yeah, like the initiative, like they're gonna have like an amazing game coming, and I think we will hear something about that this year. We have Obsidian, and I was stoked when we found out about Obsidian joining Microsoft because I love sci-fi RPGs. And they're going to be making more of them. The Outer Worlds is fantastic. And the thing is, about the Outer Worlds, people love the Outer Worlds. It's what people want from Fallout, but it's in a more smaller, contained game. But the thing is, that game was made by a small team. The rest of them are making a bigger game. Apparently, a first-person Pillars of Eternity game, from what I've heard. But whatever. But like, I think when people were wondering like, what's Microsoft going to do next? Like, we've seen the box, we've seen all this stuff. We know they have all these studios making games. So that kind of leads me to believe that everything we're going to be hearing out for the next few months, when we hear about all these little surprises and stuff, is going to be console features and games, because they certainly have the developers and the numbers to talk about this stuff. Yeah. And when it comes to like, you know, people were hating on Bleeding Edge, and it's like, but just don't play it. You know, like I really don't get this whole like, you know, Microsoft have this game coming out, and it's not, you know, AAA third person over the shoulder single player action adventure with no multiplayer mode. And like, people are just hating on it, and like, I just can't stand that, man. You know, Microsoft obviously have hired studios and hired many developers to make games going forward, because if you remember, they used to literally have Turn 10, the Coalition, and 343 Industries. That was it.
Yeah.
Like, other developers they had were like, you know, making like, you know, they were basically support studios, but Microsoft have like some of the best studios in the business. And I don't care what people say, Ninja Theory are talented. If you play Hellblade,
they're ridiculously talented. You come on, dude. They're going to be one of the top tier. And again, I'm not taking away from anybody. They got 15 of them for now. We've heard that they may even have 16. They just haven't announced it yet. I think they're going to have more.
Like, I think Microsoft are in the best position they've ever been right now, because you remember in the 360 days when they were beasting sales, they didn't have many studios.
No.
So going into this next generation, they're having this super powerful console. They have 15 or maybe 16 studios making games. Like, I don't understand how anyone can look at the situation and think, it's looking bad, you know, because it's all looking good. And yeah, I found this thing on Reddit a few weeks ago, and I try not to talk about Reddit leaks a lot, because, you know, they can, like GTA rumors, they can just not happen.
There's been a GTA rumor, I think, on a weekly basis.
And it's like this rumor was about Microsoft announcing their specs, and the date was right when they announced them. But one other thing that was in this leak was Microsoft are apparently going to announce, or should I say, talk about something every few weeks up until launch. Now, I can believe that, because they have the studios for it. And, you know, and clearly they're going to have a game coming out with Don't Nod. So that tells me that Microsoft is still not afraid to, you know, get third-party, you know, exclusive deals, or, you know, second-party deals. So I think it's a good situation Microsoft are in. I just think too many people are trying to make it look bad when, you know, if you have eyeballs, you can see that, you know, Microsoft's in a good place.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, with everything that they've done right, the writing is pretty much on the wall. And I do agree. I've seen it in the chat several times. This is Microsoft's race to lose. And I agree with that. I think that if they do something drastic where they completely fumble the ball, I don't see it happening. Real quick, Pixelbit G, good friend of the show, drops a $2 super chat. I'm smiling when I'm reading this because it's funny. He says, laughing my ass off. The kick sand in the face ads. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about, dude. It says, love you, Boom. And I said, right back at you there. Pixelbit G, thank you for the super chat. And of course, bringing back those old memories of the comic book days where, yes, there was a bully kicking the sand in the face of some scrawny kid. Oh my God. That's great. But you know what? Let's move on to the smaller part of the topic, because I know that people are like, well, just a second, Boom. We saw VR. We are going to talk about VR, and it's going to be a very tasty topic. But I want to get into the smaller one for a second. Let me just bring up the correct banner. Now, our good friend Klobrille, like I was talking about before, you know, he doesn't consider himself an insider, right? But I mean, it's clear that that he knows somebody or people within Microsoft. And he's always putting out, you know, like in tweets that make you go, And he's once again making waves on Twitter. And I have to be honest with you. This one kind of crushes all of the naysayers who continue to push this ridiculous narrative of the fact that Xbox has no games currently, and their 15 game studios are hard at work at, like Jamie said, tiddlywinks. They're making tiddlywinks only, which is ridiculous. So here is his last two tweets. And he says this: known at AAA projects at Xbox Game Studios, and he breaks it down in order. 343, Halo Infinite. In Exile, ambitious AAA RPG. Ninja Theory, Hellblade 2, plus a bunch of others. Obsidian, AAA RPG. He has PG1, of course, which is Playground Games. They're working on 2 AAA games. One, of course, is Forza, which is the Forza Horizon. And you also have the AAA RPG known as Fable, even though they don't want to admit it. Rare is working on Everwild. We also know that they're currently working or hiring to work on another project. The Initiative, quadruple A game. Turn 10 Studios, obviously, Motorsport, Forza Motorsport Next, which is probably going to be 8. Undead Labs, currently hard at work at a AAA, State of Decay 3. And World's Edge, which of course is AOE 4, Age of Empires 4 for short. And he says this: the only reason why I'm posting this is that some of you, and he's being facetious, maybe should stop pretending that the Xbox Game Studios isn't working on these kinds of bigger games. You have to be pretty naive to not see that what they're working on is all kinds of different genres or games. Okay, and it says here, and the list isn't even complete due to the character limit on Twitter. So I simply wrote in my notes, panel, let's discuss. So Zemi, I have to go to you first.
Yep.
This is a great list. This is a list that not only drops the exclamation point at the end of the sentence, takes out the highlighter and just completely goes over it. So if you miss it, you are apparently very blind. I think that this is well put. I think it's well worded. I think it's as blunt to the point as possible. And I think that it's very revealing that they have this many games. Now, we have heard from Colt Eastwood say multiple times, not only on RDX, but on his own videos, that he knows, because obviously he knows Dealer, and Dealer has Tim Dog, and all of these gentlemen that we look to for our Xbox information know people. They're currently working on 20 plus games, which is tremendous. What do you say to the people, to the toxic community? And I'm not picking on saying that it's just Sony. Every outlet has a toxic community. But what do you say to the naysayers that are probably never going to hear this, but that the fans are listening to right now about Xbox not having any games in the future? Is it not preposterous?
Yeah, it's pretty dumb. I mean, to say that they have no games is just completely wrong. I mean, you know, if they want to have a discussion, I mean, you can talk about how their games don't appeal to you. Okay, we can have that discussion. You can talk about how, you know, you just think that all of their games are automatically going to be bad. I mean, we could have that discussion too. But to say that they don't have any games is just, I mean, it's just dumb to say that, right? Because they do. I think one of the big fundamental differences between PlayStation and Xbox is that Xbox, you know, is looking to add as much variety into their first party lineup as possible because they have Game Pass and because they're trying to appeal to all gamers, not just a very select, you know, I guess category of gamers, right? And you know, I mean, my personal preference is that I love PlayStation exclusives. I think, honestly, PlayStation's first-party lineup is superior to Xbox. That's my opinion, of course. But I still enjoy Xbox, you know, first-party games. And you know, whenever we were talking about Bleeding Edge before we went live, I really do not like that game. I didn't think I was going to like the game, but I wanted to try it anyway, right? But that's not the point of Xbox's first party, right? Xbox's first party is trying to appeal to all sorts of gamers out there. And so, why I'm excited about Xbox's first parties for Halo's, for Gears, is for Fable, is for whatever Obsidian does besides Grounded. Right? And that's like the difference. But, just to say that they don't have games, I just think is wrong. It's just kind of like a trolling thing to say. And I think that that's what a lot of it is. I mean, there's only two people I think that could possibly make that tweet. Either someone that's just ignorant of the situation and just doesn't actually do the research. And, that's them. But, is also the trolls. And I think that there's probably more trolls going around the internet spewing, that narrative than there are, ignorant people, that just don't know. But no, I just think it's wrong. I mean, it's a dumb thing to say. I mean, there's just not much that you can say, at least that I could say for it. I mean, it's just a stupid statement.
No, I agree. And again, this isn't a big topic. I just thought it literally moments before we went live, I kind of just copied and pasted what he wrote, and we figured we would discuss it. So, great point on that, dude. Really, really great point. Let me bring in Tempest Sun. Obviously, certainly not the biggest topic of today. It's a bit of a fun one, in my opinion, because it really does dictate what Microsoft is doing on paper, right? Like, we haven't seen any of these games. I mean, we've seen a little bit of Halo, sure, or we've seen a little bit of Everwild. Looks fantastic. We know what Age of Empires 4 is going to be. It's going to be Age of Empires, and that's great. We saw Hellblade 2. But a lot of these other games we have not seen. And of course, being that Microsoft is going to be bringing the power into the next generation with this Xbox Series X, they know that they need games. They know that they have to fix this narrative that has been pushed against their brand. And it looks like they're going to be doing that in spades. What are your thoughts on the list that Klobrille has brought? And more importantly, his comment to the people posting the shenanigans.
He says it's a ridiculous narrative. Xbox has no games, man. He says it right there. I saw a mess. I forget who said it, but somebody in the chat said he always wondered if Klobrille was Major Nelson.
That's funny. I like that.
It makes you wonder because the dude knows stuff. He claims he's not an insider, but he does know things. So I don't know how he's getting the info, but I don't quite think he's been like super wrong on anything yet. So the guy knows stuff. But yeah, you look at the list, dude. I see if this was any normal year or of like this past generation, you could almost, for both companies, and we're talking strictly first party here, you could split this list up by a few years. But I feel like all of these games are going to be here. All of them are going to be here within the next 2 to 3 years tops. That's what I think. And if I'm right on that, you look at it, and I don't even think this lists everything coming. Oh, it does say Obsidian, so it does there. Like in Exile, they're launching their game in May. And they want to make a he does list that here too as well, the ambitious AAA. But so anyway, like if you take all these games here and say they're all coming out within the next 3 years, which we know for a fact most of them are. How many games is on this list here? That's 3, 6, 9, 10, 11. Through 3 years. I mean, that statement that Phil made, I think it was Phil made, that he wants like a kind of a AAA game like almost every quarter.
Yeah,
that's believable, especially if you factor in most of these companies have multiple projects going on, and they might not all be AAA bangers, but like we said earlier, there's going to be people that love Bleeding Edge. There's going to be some people that love the survival genre, games like Conan or Ark, those types of games. Obsidian's making their own take on that game. They're making Grounded. So people are going to like this stuff. It is what it is. I mean, there's going to be something for everybody.
Yeah, Obsidian is also making a AAA game that could eclipse one of their best games ever made, and that's in Fallout New Vegas, right?
Yeah, I mean, and on the flip side too, this is all the stuff that he lists. They could have other stuff in the pipeline. That's assuming they don't have more studios on the way. They might not make another studio. I mean, we're still waiting for, Marvel to knock on, Microsoft's door and be like, hey, do you want to make a game for us, or vice versa? They could do something that route, something. I don't know. The sky is the limit, but just on this list alone, it's a stacked next few years. Coalition isn't on this list. They're making something. I don't know if it's going to be Gear 6 or they're going to put that on the back burner for a little bit.
I'm hoping it's a Perfect Dark reboot of some sorts.
You think they're going to do that?
I don't know. I don't know, man. It's you know what? We've heard that the Initiative is the one that's doing that. At least right. That's the rumors, right? Mm-hmm. So what are they working on? Are they going to rush to do Gear 6? No, I don't think that they are. I think that they're going to potentially put out something else. I think it's going to be a new IP. That's just my opinion. The company, the developer making We Happy Few. It's not on here. They're making a AAA game that's based on Uncharted 4 and BioShock. Holy shit, color me impressed. You put those two games together, and you put they're one of the companies, they're one of the developers that I don't think anyone's really giving them clout. Wait till we see their game; it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this is I think they're having it's not monthly. I don't think it's monthly. If it is, that's crazy that they're paying for all the heads of these studios to meet together. But they're having these summits where they all meet together.
It's monthly, dude. I think
that's crazy. That's nuts. But you take all the heads from these different developers. Like, I'm just going to make a bold statement, but I don't think I'm wrong. I really don't. Gears has the best pop and lock third person cover based shooting of any game ever.
I agree.
It just does. You play Gears 5, even if you're not a huge fan of the Gears series, you have to admit that their mechanics, their shooting mechanics now especially, but just the mechanic of going from cover to cover, bouncing off of walls, it's the best, dude. It's the best. So like what you just said, if what's their name? Not the Coalition. It's the company you just talked about.
The company that's making We Happy Few.
Yeah, okay. I can't remember the name for the life of me. But you take that, and if it's supposed to be like Uncharted, so cover-based shooting, and with a mixture of BioShock in there, so who can they turn to make sure that their third-person shooter compulsion? Yeah. So who can they turn to make sure that their pop and lock third-person shooting is the best that it could possibly be? There, any of these companies want great water in their game, they can go to Rare. You know what I'm saying? It's just I don't know if they're meeting monthly, the amount of help they'll be able to give to each other. Nobody's mentioned using the Slipspace engine, but if it's as great of an engine as we're led to believe, and this is the tools, it's Microsoft's engine, man. If it's that powerful, what's to stop any of these companies saying, hey, can we use this engine? It's not even a matter of can we use it. It's just like, 343, show us how to use it. Where's its strengths, yada, yada. And they're not going to dictate which engine any of these companies use either. So if they want to use Unreal, they can just use Unreal. You know what I'm saying? So if they have creative freedom, they have all the resources of a Microsoft, and then they can collaborate together. I see no reason why you can't take a now AA studio like Undead Labs and make their next game look like The Last of Us. Just, State of Decay, more base building, more choice, more of an RPG. That people might hear that and see the current State of Decay and be like, well, that's not possible. Who says it's not? Honestly, who says it's not possible? If they want to hire more people, I'm guaranteed Microsoft will let them do that. And if they want their next game to be a true AAA experience, I bet you that's what it's going to be. So I don't, I know I went really long-winded on that. I just can't stress enough how just awesome it is seeing this list. We don't have to sit there and be like, oh, man, here's another Sony fan listing off 95 games that they probably won't even play, but it's in their lists. You all remember the lists, right?
Yes.
They're just nonstop lists of games. Well, we could have that list too, and this isn't even listing stuff like currently what I'm playing. Like I could go on Twitter and brag all day. I have Phantasy Star Online too, and you don't right now. Right. I'm not doing that, but I could. It's just an example. So it's not even, this is just first party we're talking about. This isn't second party or third party deals they have either. So it's impressive stuff, man.
No, it's a great point. You know what, Jamie, I want to bring you in on this small topic, but let me just catch up on some of the super chats, my friend. Smitty Smith drops an outstanding and very generous additional $10 super chat and says this: all of the fanboys used to say Xbox has Halo, Gears, and Forza, and then when you get to other games, they have a problem with that. Please check your frontal cortex, the Book of X. Great point, dude. Great point. Gamer by Choice drops an additional $5 super chat. Thank you for the generosity, my brother. He says, I hate when people say, except for Gears, Forza, and Halo, they have no games. That's like saying, except for Jordan, Pippen, and Kerr, the Bulls are horrible. That's a really good one. I love that. That's excellent. And I think there was another one that Zemi might have put over here. Let me just take a look in my private chat. Okay, I did get it. Okay, so you know what? Let's bring Jamie Moran in on this one. Obviously, when you put pen to paper or finger to key on your keyboard, and you come up with this very ambitious list, it kind of shuts down all of the hate and the negativity towards what's going on at Microsoft. And to be completely fair and honest, I know I understand where all of this animosity is coming from. It's because right now the PlayStation toxic community is grasping at straws because they are literally holding on by a fingernail to their narrative that they have been pushing for 6 years. The power crown went to the Xbox One X. It has now officially gone to the Xbox Series X. And that's, and regardless of how fast your SSD is, Microsoft's box is right now and is going to remain until they come out with a pro version better than the PS5. There's just no questioning it. So now we can say, well, they have no games because they haven't shown us anything. Well, quite frankly, Sony hasn't shown shit either for their next generation, even though what they have coming out this year is impressive. For you, as someone that on your own channel covers Xbox exclusively and someone who is very active on social media, does this tweet or tweets, plural, from Klobrille really shut down what everyone is continuously saying about Xbox has no games?
Yeah. I mean, like, the tweet aside, like, they wouldn't buy all these studios for nothing. Like, they obviously making games and development. And here's the thing, I prefer Xbox, and something I like to throw little ideas out there all the time. Like, what would be a cool idea for a game? And some people want certain types of games to come to their favorite platform, right? So in like 2015, I had this idea of, do you know what would be cool? An XCOM Gears of War game. And Microsoft announced that in 2018, and I'm getting it. In 2017, I tweeted out saying, do you know what would be cool? Flight Simulator on a console. And I'm getting that.
Yeah.
I can't really complain because I'm getting what I want. And they also have like 3 RPG studios. And apparently In Exile's next game after Wasteland is going to be like a big third-person game, apparently. And I think, like, Microsoft, they invested money in where I want them to put money. RPGs. Like, Microsoft is clearly needed. And here's the thing, Sony doesn't really have a lot of RPGs, but Microsoft does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, when this next generation, gets in full swing, I think Microsoft won't be known as the Dude Bro box anymore. I think they'll be known as a very high-quality RPG developer. Because everything's leaning that way. And if you have things like the Initiative, like, we don't know what game they're making. It could be an RPG. We don't know. But, like, the amount of games that's coming, there's going to be something for everyone.
Yeah, I agree.
They have shooters coming. They have races. They have, I can pretty much guarantee it, an action adventure or two. And, something that really bothers me on Twitter, and when people say this in general, is a Game Pass filler. And they try and make it out that, a game going on Game Pass devalues itself, which I don't understand, because I've been subscribed to Netflix since 2013, and Stranger Things isn't less quality because it doesn't release on Blu-ray the same day. It just is what it is. The Mandalorian isn't dog crap because it doesn't release on Blu-ray the same day.
Right.
But there you go. And it's like, Microsoft's in a good position. And I don't think, I don't think they're going to have like 30 or 40 games releasing this year or anything. They're going to have a steady amount of games releasing. And I think they're just in a good position. Like, really think about it. They've never been in a better position, gaming-wise, than they've ever been right now. They have a powerful console coming out. They have the messaging perfect. They have backwards compatibility nailed down for launch. They have all these studios making games. They're looking to buy more developers. They're looking to invest more into third-party, or should I say second-party games. Like, all signs are pointing towards Microsoft going full hog into next generation. And then we have Satya Nadella, who's a big services guy, who's fully behind Phil Spencer and Xbox. So, to me, that's it can't be anything but positive.
Listen, it's all great points that you're making. I think everyone here really made points, and I think that with this list put in front of us, it's easy to see that there is a tremendous amount of big AAA bangers in the form of RPGs and all types of games to basically appeal to many types of gamers. Listen, for me personally, I like what they're doing because I'll play every one of those games. I have a very broad spectrum when it comes to. I'm not just a dude bro guy. I'm not just a racer guy. I like games across the board, and I think what they're going to be doing is appealing to both the single player and multiplayer gamer. And I think what they're doing in regards to touching different genres is they're opening the door to get more people over to their brand. And rest assured that those over-the-shoulder third-person type games that I enjoy for their adult-themed, story-driven narratives that I get on the Sony PlayStation 4, you're going to probably, or PlayStation 5, hopefully moving forward, you're going to get those same experiences on the Xbox. Like I said, you have a new Fable coming out. There's another massive RPG that they're working on. We're potentially getting a new Perfect Dark. That's probably going to be that third person over the shoulder type of game. I mean, the list just goes on. And we don't even know what some of these companies are doing as their second and third project. I mean, remember, we have Project Mara coming. We don't know if that's going to be first person. We don't know if that's going to be, over the shoulder, third person horror like Silent Hill. I mean, the list is, I'll put it this way, the deck is stacked in Microsoft's favor when it comes to first party and them delivering in the next generation. But I want to move on to the very hot and next topic. But before I do, I have to thank a couple of people. First of all, Dragon Wolf, the outstanding $2 super chat, and says this: do you think that the 13.3 teraflop rumor / leak is the PS5 Pro? It's a good point. I don't think so. I know that we've heard Sony talk about, there's going to be a Pro. It would be almost suicide if they talked about it for the Pro coming out in the next 3 years. They would have to take it on the chin as being the underpowered box that has great first-party games, but their third-party games look better on the other one. I think that right now, if they would even to mention it, it would be considered an absolute fail. The PS5, regardless of how powerful it's going to be at 9.2 or 10.3 overclocked or variable, whatever you want to use your terminology, it would be disastrous for them. You're not going to hear about a Pro for at least 2 to 3 years, in my opinion. Gamer by Choice drops an additional $5 super chat. Thank you for being here, but also the generosity. He says, I would love to see a family of games from Xbox like Tom Clancy's games where characters can jump to other games like Sam Fisher and Jack Ryan. Yeah, that would be dope. I'm not going to front. I'd love to see different characters make their way into other franchises. Of course, we've seen that with Killer Instinct, which I'm still hoping and praying that there is a Killer Instinct 2. But let's get into the next topic. Let me pull up my brand, my banner, so people know we're talking about. Look, let me just say this. VR has been a very, very extremely hot topic in the last couple of days, right? We have heard and seen all kinds of claims, both from the toxic and nauseating community, as well as people that just want to talk about whether or not Microsoft needs VR in the next generation. And what sparked this conversation? What sparked the automatic interest in VR? Well, Half-Life Alyx was released for the Valve Index, and the reviews have been nothing short of spectacular. Some within the industry are saying that it is the best Half-Life game that has ever been released. It is currently sitting at a 92 Metacritic with 27 reviews and an 8.9 user score on Metacritic. Now, as we all know, Sony's PlayStation VR is considered the market leader when talking about virtual reality. Now, the sales numbers for the PlayStation VR, which I'm responsible for two because I bought the original and then upgraded to the HDR pass-through, is at 4 million units sold since 2016 when it launched. I currently also support the Oculus Quest, thanks to the very unbelievable generosity of Wilmy Hood, who may or may not be listening. He's probably working right now. And I have about 10 to 12 I believe it's 12 titles I have for that. And to say that I'm a huge VR fan would be considered, in my opinion, a tremendous understatement, as much as I talk about it. Though we're here to talk about Phil Spencer's reluctance to have VR on the Xbox Series X. Now, I pulled an interview during XO19 where Phil Spencer was speaking to Steve Wright of Stevia.com, where he said this. Phil Spencer has confirmed that VR is not the focus of the upcoming Project Scarlet, which we now know was the Xbox Series X. Stever used the interview with Phil Spencer from XO19 to get an update on Microsoft's stance on virtual reality back in Sydney of 2016, where Spencer told us that VR would come to the Xbox One X, then Project Scorpio, and when it didn't feel like it was like a demo or an experiment. And here's some of the quotes from Phil Spencer regarding VR. Yeah, I said it with a frown. I don't love my quote there because I'm not trying to demean the work that people are doing in VR. I have some issues with virtual reality. It's isolating, and I don't think of games as communal, kind of together experiences. We're responding to what our customers are asking for. No one is asking for VR. And this is a direct quote from Phil Spencer. The vast majority of our customers know that if they want a VR experience, there are places to go and get that. We see the volumes of those on PC and other places. Now, he didn't mention the PlayStation. Now, Spencer admitted that some of the decision based on VR was cold, hard cash, and that no one is selling, and quote unquote, nobody is selling millions and millions of VR units. I think we might get there eventually. And he concluded with this, but yeah, that's not where our focus is for next generation. Okay, so now we're going to break it down to the panel. And of course, I have to get the chat involved in this because there's going to be a big divide. Like I said on Twitter, I respect Phil Spencer's decision to put VR on the back burner right now. The numbers, in my opinion, do not equate to sales versus investment scenario in Microsoft's favor. VR, again, in my opinion, is still a very niche market. And to put it quite frankly, I would rather see, and again, this might shock a lot of people because they know I love VR, I would rather see their first-party studios making AAA bangers than taking resources away to make a 5 to 6 hour experience that the player needed to invest another $300 to $500 in to play VR. So now I'm going to start with Zemi. Zemi, listen, you play both on PC and, of course, on Xbox. You are going to buy a PlayStation 5. There's no doubt about it. You've already talked about it.
Yes.
My question regarding this is, does VR need to come to the Xbox Series X? Or do you think that, like Phil said, there are other avenues to have people get their VR fix? What are your thoughts?
So does it need to come to the Xbox Series X? Maybe, and like the reason I say maybe is that like with you, I agree 100%. It should be put on the back burner because I, as a consumer, as an Xbox fan, would rather see, them focus all of their resources on things that all of us gamers are actually going to use, which is games. Like I want them to focus all of their time, all of their resources on games because that's foolproof, right? We know that everyone wants to play games, and so the possibility of just regular games that we play on our monitors selling is going to be a lot higher than VR, which is still quite niche as it is right now.
Right.
But that's not to say that I think that they should stay away from VR forever. I think that they should just maybe revisit it in the next year, maybe 2 years, just relax with it, see how it goes for PlayStation. Let PlayStation be the guinea pig and, to tell them if it's going to be a profitable endeavor. Because I think the last thing Xbox needs right now is another Kinect situation. Because I understand that a lot of people like the Kinect. I understand you. I get you. But there was more people that didn't like the Kinect, me included, than that did, right? And VR is still extremely, extremely niche. I mean, it's really cool. It's an amazing technology. I would love to try it out, right? I still haven't even ever, actually played it, right? But it's just not popular enough yet. So I think Xbox should definitely, give it a few years, see how it works out for PlayStation, because, there's no need to jump into it right now. PlayStation already has you beat. They're already doing VR right now. There's no need to jump into it right now. It's still too niche. And just wait to see if it becomes more sustainable for the long term, because right now I just don't think it's sustainable enough for a big company like, Microsoft.
I mean, listen, one of the things that Phil Spencer said when talking that I left out of the interview because I figured I would just bring it up in conversation was the wires factor. Now, obviously, the PlayStation VR, I know a lot of people are like, but just a second, Boom, it only has one wire that plugs in. What are you talking about? And I would agree. It's a heavy, thick wire that kind of that goes over your shoulder, kind of hangs out there. You forget that it's there, though. The Oculus Quest that I have has no wires, which it's amazing. Now, the only way I see this scenario actually working out is if Microsoft completely lifted their hands up and said, okay, Oculus Quest, we're going to make you work with the Xbox, but we're not producing any hardware. We're not making any games. We're going to let third-party games be made for VR because we're not taking resources away. Now, could that be a quick fix? Sure. But right now, and I agree with you with the whole Kinect thing, Microsoft's focus is on what? Power, right? The other focus that we just talked about a moment ago was games. Once they have their ducks lined up in a row and we're getting 4 AAA bangers per year from their first party, we got a couple of second party games thrown in there. Third party games look and play best and take full advantage of the Series X. And they have the Power Crown. Then they can turn around because they're the champion of having games, right? The narrative's gone. Power's gone. They're sitting at the top of the food chain right now. Then they can consider, well, you know what? The only thing we don't have is that new, PlayStation VR 2.0 that Sony just announced, right? Because that announcement is coming. You can use the old hardware on the PS5, and that's great, but we know that a PSVR in the form of wireless is coming, and I will be investing in that whenever that's available. I like the way that you broke this down. I agree 100%. I think that their focus needs to stay on keep the eye on the prize. Not to sound corny or anything. Right now, the prize is power. They got it. Keep that focus. Let laser focus on the games, and maybe sometime down the line, revisit the whole VR thing if it's still around. Because remember, it's still very niche. Mm-hmm. Anything else you'd like to add before I move on to Tempest Sun?
No, that's pretty much it. And well, I will say this. I think that the way that Phil Spencer at Xbox has treated VR in the past is just absolutely horrific. Just making people, think one thing and then going, the completely opposite way. But hopefully they get a little bit more grounded and they stick with their guns on this. You know what I mean? That way we're not backtracking and thinking two different things. You know what I mean?
I agree. I would absolutely agree with you there. I would say that the way that Phil Spencer has poo-pooed it, I guess is a good way to put it, is maybe not been the best. Maybe it's not been the most politically correct way where I'm not saying he's dissed it. I'm not saying that he's insulted anyone. I'm saying that there could have been a better way for him to handle it. And he's admitted that live on camera.
Absolutely.
That he has, not been the most forthcoming when speaking about VR. He doesn't like isolating type experiences, whereas, I'm not saying that I like to be isolated, but I can play multiplayer, but I actually quite enjoy the tranquility of being just you and the machine with VR. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But Tempest, let me get you on in here because you yourself was also someone that has played on PC and on Xbox. Do you feel Phil Spencer and the Xbox brand has missed the boat when it comes to VR?
Ooh, missed the boat? No. As a matter of fact, that's going to be one of the beneficial things about having such a ridiculously powerful console at the start of the gen. It's future-proofing for quite a while, and they could always rely on a third party. Like they could go to Oculus or somebody like that, strike up a deal. Next thing you know, you have VR on your console.
Yeah.
I do think though, it's you got to remember, I think this is the first of probably many. I'll be fair, of probably many, but this is the first real game that has came out for just VR that I think has actually made non-VR users jealous.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yes.
I think this is the first time, and it pisses me off a little bit. I can only speak for myself here, but I've played every Half-Life. I used to buy the Half-Life expansions, and they were good too for Half-Life 1. I've played them all on PC. I've played Half-Life on PS2 when it came out. It was actually a very good port, by the way, if anybody remembers. That was a fantastic port of the game, of Half-Life 2. Orange Box was one of the best values in gaming ever. When it released, the Orange Box on 360, unheard of value. It's one of the highest rated games, if you will, even though it was like a collection of games. So I really like Half-Life, and it did piss me off. It pissed me off. I haven't, they haven't made Half-Life 3. People have been waiting for that game for well over a decade now. And I don't understand. They wanted to push VR. That's fine, but what are they really expecting to happen here? I think the most concurrent players they had was like 43,000. That's probably way more than any other VR game has seen, if you will. But at the end of the day, it's still a drop in a bucket compared to what it would have been if it would have released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC as a normal game. It would have been one of the best-selling games this generation. You would have seen Red Dead Redemption 2 numbers. Easy Red Dead Redemption 2 numbers, So, and I have no doubt it would have been great because from what I'm hearing is this VR game is great. So personally, I'm a little pissed off, and I can't, at my point in my life, I can't do VR personally. I know it's extremely different for so many other people, but just isolating, putting something in front of my face, making sure I don't, kick over my little 18-month-old walking around.
God forbid.
Yeah. I mean, by the time I make time for games, not that I have a lot of time to play them, but I make the time. And generally I do it. I'm fortunate enough that my wife loves playing video games. I generally play games with her. And if I do play them by myself, like personally, I don't even really play with headphones on. I might turn the volume down, but I have a home theater set up. I just don't like isolating myself from my family. You might think that's petty or like that's not a real scenario, but not everybody wants to have this thing across their face, wires or not. So I don't care how good it gets, how mainstream it gets. Until my children are older, I'm just not going to feel comfortable using VR. And I don't think I'm the only one in that boat either. The numbers speak for themselves. Like I said, you would have seen Red Dead Redemption 2 numbers, maybe even beyond that, okay, if it was Half-Life 3. Normally, like a normal game launch.
Right.
So take that and put it in the VR realm. Clearly, there's not as many people playing VR as there is normally, and I still think it's niche. I think Zemi was on point. It is still niche. This is the outlier. This is the first time we've seen a game make non-VR players jealous, and it's Half-Life. Not many games have that kind of clout. So I still think it's going to be even years to come before the next game makes non-VR players jealous. I think this is a fluke, at least for now. So I think Phil was on point. Should he have had more tact in saying the things he said? I don't know. What more do you want from the guy? He took a failing brand, and now there's a very real possibility that they might be the brand to beat coming next generation. I think he's done plenty. Him and his team have turned this ship around. Why add another layer to it to make him like hurdle over? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree.
So,
I think that's actually a great point.
Yeah.
Just looking at the pricing, the just so people know where we're coming from, the Valve Index is the high end is $1,000.
That's insane. Yeah.
$1,000 investment, and guess what? You need a rig to run it. I couldn't run it off of my Surface Pro 4. You know what I'm saying? Because I know that there was originally, well, where else you can play it on this one? You can play it on that one. Yeah, I think you can play it on the Quest, but the Quest has to be hooked up to a rig where it's just on its own. It doesn't have the power to play it. So it's $1,000, and you need a monster rig to run this thing. So just think about that. If in the door investment for one game, even though it is Half-Life, like Tempest was saying, a rig, a good one, a good running rig is $2,500 to $3,000 if you really want to get the bells and whistles, and you got to spend $1,000 on top of that to play Half-Life Alyx. Game is going to be great, but it's probably only going to be about a 6 or 7 hour experience. Do you, as a gamer, want to invest, $2,500 to $3,500 to play a game? I don't know. I'm not sure. And I kind of, like I said, I know, like it's as big as a fan as I am of VR, I have to go with Papa Phil on this one. But you know what? Let's get Jamie in here. Jamie, I want to get your opinion on this. I know that you yourself have talked about it, not only on your channel, but you've also been very vocal about it on Twitter. For you personally, with the success, and when we say success, right now there's only about maybe 48,000 copies of Half-Life Alyx that have sold, right, from what we know. And we don't even know if those came with the unit, which I would imagine that if you bought the unit and they didn't give you that free, F them. That's what I'm going to say that. But even if this thing sells, let's get crazy. Let's really let our hair down here, Jamie, and say that by the end of the month, they've sold 100,000 copies of Half-Life Alyx. Now that may be a success for smaller titles. I don't necessarily know if I would equate that to being a successful launch, for a Half-Life game, because yes, it is VR and yes, it is niche, but man, you want to see a game of that. And by the way, Half-Life Alyx looks amazing. I am jelly that I can't play it on 2 VR units that I own. So I am right there with you. But Jamie, do you think that Microsoft actually needs VR, or do you agree with Phil that he's at a point where he's okay with having a monster console, the first-party games to go with it, and sending consumers somewhere else to get their VR fix?
Well, I'll put my cards on the table. I can't use VR. I get extreme motion sickness.
Oh boy,
to the point where like last time I used an Oculus Rift, I nearly passed out. That's how bad it is.
Wow.
So when it comes to this, and I'm a Half-Life fan. I loved Half-Life, Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, and Episode 1. I love Valve games in general. But here's the thing. There's this kind of gaming mentality, and this has gone for decades now. If a gamer says something they like, they want it, right? And yes, Half-Life Alyx looks bloody amazing, but it's a VR game. And
right.
The second this released, for some reason, everyone was like, I want VR on Xbox because I want this game. And That's not really how it works, because Valve came out and said, it's not coming to PlayStation VR. They came out and said that. So
Right.
Valve doesn't really have any interest in putting this on other platforms. So people wanting VR on Xbox for Half-Life Alyx doesn't really make much sense. But with games like there's a new Medal of Honor game coming out this year, which is going to be bloody good. But the thing is, a lot of people won't be able to play that either because of the VR thing. And I've made a video about this in the past. I think Microsoft should allow VR on Xbox just because I like technology to grow in general.
Right.
And there is a market for it. But I think people go about asking for it the wrong way, because if you have, let's say, 100 people tweeting Phil every day the same thing, saying, we want VR, you promise VR, you want VR, he's not going to listen to that. And I made this point in a video a while ago that, like, if people genuinely want VR to come to Microsoft's Xbox, they have to go about it the right way. When people wanted Square Enix to bring over Kingdom Hearts, I didn't see people tweeting Square Enix all the time. I saw people making videos, making GIFs, making fan art, without even bothering to tweet at Square Enix. And I know for a fact that people at Square Enix were searching Kingdom Hearts and Xbox as key phrases on Twitter. This is what all these companies do.
Yes.
If people want something, let's use Beat Saber for an analogy. If people want Beat Saber to come over to Xbox, people would have to tweet the developer, and then the developer would get in contact with Microsoft. That's how it works. But
yeah,
if that's the only way people will get VR on Xbox, if people ask these developers that make these VR games to bring them over. So while I can't use it, and while I think Half-Life Alyx does look fantastic, if people genuinely want VR on Xbox, go about it the right way. Ask these developers that make these games to bring them over to Xbox, because then those developers will get in contact with Phil Spencer, and then look, Microsoft doesn't even have to make VR games. They just have to let it be supported on the platform. So there's a section in the store that says VR. That's literally it. Microsoft doesn't have to dip the toes into the VR space, because for years people were saying Microsoft needs more studios. They get studios. Then people say Microsoft needs games. They're making games. They can't just make VR a priority just because Half-Life Alyx exists. It's a reason maybe towards like them in the future getting into VR, because VR games are getting to a point now where they actually look like AAA games rather than these little physics game experiences. So I think they should do it. They should support VR, basically. Just go about it the right way.
No, I agree. I mean, allowing a third-party developer to maybe produce, a branded, maybe it would be, a branded, VR unit, and then they obviously could maybe make games for this said unit, would be interesting. I think right now they need to stay focused on what they're doing. What they're doing is what we want as gamers. And you can't argue the fact that, yes, maybe Phil Spencer could have put it in a more politically correct way. I hear you. I won't argue that. But at the same time, I do like his personal stance on it. He has a vision. He wants that vision to be fulfilled. One of the biggest letdowns for this generation for Xbox fans was at first the power, right? We got that back with the Xbox One X. And the first party games that they were putting out weren't what a lot of people wanted. And they have attacked both of those fronts. They have responded to the criticism, and adding VR to the mix right now, I think would be messy. It would be, what I'm saying? Like we know that Sony's going to do it, and that's fine. They're an established market leader, so they can talk about VR. I mean, not right now. And I think the reason why they're not talking about PSVR 2.0 is because they're not even talking about PlayStation 5 or any of the games that are coming out. So right now they shouldn't be jumping to any, ahead of themselves. But getting back to Microsoft not having it, like I said, I have two VR units. And again, if you are someone that only plays an Xbox and you really want it, well, keep pounding the pavement. Let Phil know. Once that you want this, and maybe they'll listen. And Microsoft is good at that. But we are closing in on, or we actually surpassed 2 hours. we are at the 2 hours and 3 minute mark. I hope that everyone enjoyed the show. I'm going to be honest with you; it's probably one of my favorites so far because of the topics and the way that they were not only doled out, but the response from both the chat and of course the panel was monumental. But let me just catch these last two super chats and we'll get everybody on out of here. It says here, this is from, okay, hold on a second. I got a few of them. Spider-Man, thanks for being here, dude. Really appreciate it. He drops a $2 super chat and says this: YouTube with no notifications, Google fix it. Yes, listen, folks. I'm literally at wit's end. Now, I'm going to be honest. The numbers for the channel have been incredible in 2020. They really have. I felt like as a content creator, my channel has turned a corner where most shows, if you go to the list of what I do, and I do 3 weekly shows, I'm getting 1,000 to 2,000 more views than I do have in subs, and it's amazing. It is humbling. It is unbelievable that many people tune into these little shows that I do. I would like more people to subscribe. That's not even the problem right now. The notifications is a problem. I can ask you to do one thing for me if it's not going to be putting anyone out of their way. If you are disappointed that you didn't get a chance to listen to this live and you're listening to it on the replay, and normally you are a live listener, you have to screen cap the channel, and you have to at YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Like, put me in there as well, and I'll retweet it and I'll favorite and I'll even write a comment. They have to know that there's a problem. Now, to be honest, they did reach out to me in DM. And we've been going back and forth since Tuesday, and I was sending all the notifications and messages that I was getting from people like, "Hey, Boom, what's going on? I didn't know that you were live." And there was a dozen of them easily, and there's probably more now. All I can say is the thing that they suggested, and I think it's just PRBS, is that you got to hit the notification bell. Because regular notifications for some reason are not going out. So if you are sub to the channel, please consider hitting that notifications bell. Supposedly, quote unquote, that's better. And the other thing is, let them know that you're not getting the notifications for your favorite show, if I am your favorite show, and maybe that will help. But I think it equates to what's going on in the world. I don't think I'm a rocket scientist for saying it. I know in one of the first DMs, they said that normally what happens is that if you do a title a certain way, it's flagged. And normally there's a human being to unflag it. Apparently it's only being done by computers right now because everyone is either working from home or they don't have the manpower, which is why my last two shows had 410 views for almost a week before anyone started seeing it, which is ridiculous. I mean, they're crushing the little guy. So those are the things that you can do. But thank you very much for being here. I want to thank, of course, we had almost 130 people here. And I want to thank you for taking the time to come out. Hopefully these extra shows and the length of these shows are kind of helping you a little bit with the world issues that are going on, kind of just pull you out of reality for a little bit, just to kind of hang out with your friends and your family, talk video games, talk Xbox, and I hope that I'm helping in some way. Of course, I want to thank the outstanding generosity that continues to, again, be flooded on almost every show. Thank you very much. And of course, I could not do the show without this amazing panel. So let's get out to the outros. And Zemi Games, I want to start with you first. Obviously, Zemi, you are a part of this. You are a co-host to this show, and you are here every week without fail. You make it better every time you're on the show. And I love what you do and the energy and the passion that you bring about the Xbox brand to each one of the shows that you co-host with me. Tell everyone where they can follow you on social media, which you've been very active on. I'm proud of you, and where they can tune in to your YouTube channel.
Well, thank you so much, Boom. And I mean, today's podcast was just absolutely fantastic. The topics were just on fire and everybody's opinions were just absolutely incredible. So super fun podcast for today. If you guys want to, you can check me out on YouTube. It's Zemi Games. I do a bunch of gaming content, gaming news, reviews. And I'm going to be starting to do more Let's Plays on there as well. You guys can also follow me on Twitter at Zemi Games. My DMs are always open. I usually just post things like if I see, a topic I really, really like or something, I'll retweet it, like most people do. But my DMs are also always open. So feel free to send me a message if you ever want to. I love interacting with the community and listening to the show. Today, maybe you heard something that you disagree. Maybe you heard something that you like. Always feel free to throw me a message in the DM. And I'll definitely reply back. Boom, thank you so much. Amazing show, man.
Appreciate it very much, and of course, enjoy having you on. And I'm glad that you had you had fun because I had a ton of fun also. Tempest Son taking the time during his work day to be here because he missed Monday. Tempest, listen, dude, really appreciate you hanging out with us, giving us your very honest and well thought opinion regarding the Xbox brand and the topics we hit. Do me a favor, dude. Tell everyone where they can follow you on social media, which you're pretty active on, but also potentially team up with you or get sniped by you on Xbox Live.
Makes me laugh every time you say that, Boom.
Well, your skills in the first and the FPS battle game is strong. Yeah. So
I do what I can. You can find me at the Tempest Son on Twitter. My gamer tag is Tempest Son. Hey, it just dawned on me, man. I got the email. They're about to charge me because it's been pre-ordered for like months now. Resident Evil 3, baby. It's next week.
Nice.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that, Boom?
I'm very excited because now I know that GameStop is going to have a curbside pickup, so I might still get my collector's edition.
Nice.
So I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, no, I had a real fun time here today. I'm glad I could be here. Thank you to the chat for keeping things interesting, giving me plenty to read. You guys cracked me up. But thank you. Thank you very much. I had a real good time. So.
Well, thanks for being here, dude. Super appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to be here. And, of course, last but not least, all the way from, of course, the UK, the elusive gamer known as Jamie Moran, the opinionated, sarcastic Brit. Thank you for being here, dude. Super appreciate your opinion and everything you brought to the table. Tell everyone where they can follow you on your very active social media known as Twitter, but also check out your outstanding and very active YouTube channel.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Boom. Today's been an awesome show. It's a good distraction from what's going on in real life.
Yes.
But yeah, my YouTube channel is The Elusive Gamer. I have a lot more content coming out. And, I've been trying to get more consistent content out weekly. And I'm literally about to invest over $1,000 into my channel. So that should hopefully pan out well. But yeah, my Twitter's my Twitter's Jamie Man UK, where I post jokes and game and stuff.
Well, thanks for being here, dude. Look forward to working with you again. Of course, we'll be trying to get that done as the world deals with the current crisis. But thanks everybody for being here. We're going to be doing it live once again on tomorrow morning's Breakfast with Boom. I am currently searching for an optimal or optimized panel. I do have one or two people. I got to get a few more, and I'll be making that announcement on who is going to be on that show later on this afternoon. Everyone take care, and we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. Take care, everyone.